Welcome to another episode of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, your weekly dose of news and advice that comes to your pocket every single Saturday. Holding it down, here we got Mac, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Enjoy today's show.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. We are continuing on our running back week. We are talking about Joe Mixon, one of the most talked about running backs coming into 2020 with a potential brand new all-star rookie quarterback at the helm, Joe Burrow. But before you do that, please hit the subscribe button. Please like, please comment. Let me know how into Joe Mixon you are and where you would be willing to draft him in 2020. I think I'm one of the only ones a part of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast that actually likes him. So, to start, Joe Mixon is one of the most talented running backs in the league, and he's only 23 years old. He's an elite pass catcher out of the backfield and a guy that could run through the tackles. Last year, to finish the year, he averaged over 10 points per game as once he finally got that opportunity. He really started the year poorly, but he had an elite second half of the season. And I think that's going to stick in people's minds is that they already missed the playoffs coming into the second half where he actually thrived. But I'm going to send it over to Mac. I don't think you're a Joe Mixon believer. I think he has a potential to be elite alongside Joe Burrow. We all know rookie's best friend coming into the league are these short passes, short dump offs, and I think Joe Mixon is going to be a beneficiary of that. Do you agree with me, Mac?
It's tough for me with Joe Mixon. Coming out for him in his rookie year, I wasn't very high on Joe Mixon, and he definitely proved me right. 3.5 yards per carry in that rookie season. Now, granted, the Cincinnati Bengals haven't been relevant for some time, and really it hasn't been since that 2011 Andy Dalton, one of the best rookie campaigns of all time. I believe it's a top 10 performance from a rookie quarterback, and the Bengals just haven't been able to get it done. And I think that Joe Mixon, it's taken him a little bit to become accustomed to the NFL game, but also his team's not doing him any favors with win-loss totals in the negatives and negative game scripts for a majority of the time, which hurts his ability to run. Nonetheless, I'll give him his credit. Last year, saw the ball 278 times and also recorded 35 receptions on 45 targets. So he's starting to become a little bit more used in the passing game, and it's nice to see him get over 300 touches, 4.1 yards per carry, only got into the end zone 5 times. So for me, Joe Mixon, really, there hasn't been a whole lot of improvement since that rookie season. And again, I think it has to do with the team more so than Joe Mixon, because I do agree with Landon. He is quite talented. Now, if I'm going to take in Joe Burrow as the defining piece as to whether Joe Mixon can find success or this team can turn it around, there's only been 4 of the past 53 quarterbacks within the fantasy era, let's call it, since fantasy football was, since inception. Only 4 of the top 53 first-round quarterbacks have ever finished their rookie seasons as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and that's 2012 RG3, who was quarterback 5, 2012 Andrew Luck, who was quarterback 10, 2011 Cam Newton, who was quarterback 3, and 2006 Vince Young, the legend, at quarterback 9. Okay, now 2017 Deshaun Watson was a quarterback 1, and 2006 Jay Cutler was a quarterback 10, if we go by fantasy points per game. Now, is Joe Burrow in that caliber of player? I don't know, but the potential of him to help his team as much as he could, it's tough to say. I guess Kyler Murray did it last year. Actually, I should add him to this list. Kyler Murray finished as the quarterback 7 in his rookie season, but I don't think Joe Burrow has the same level of talent that a guy like Kyler Murray or RG3 or Cam Newton or certainly Vince Young did coming out of college. So I don't think that Joe Burrow is enough in his rookie season to ascend this team to the level that would make Joe Mixon take that leap as well. So at the 201 right now, I'm out on Joe Mixon. I certainly don't want to spend my fantasy capital on him in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to beat a dead horse here, but I have certain rules that I follow in fantasy, and one of them is I avoid the Bengals. Now, I have deviated from this rule occasionally, try to convince myself Jeremy Hill was the future. Picking a Bengals offensive player, not named AJ Green, is usually one of the fastest ways to sewer your entire fantasy season. That ADP for the lead running back of the Bengals offense is potentially the biggest anchor I've ever heard. Now, I get what you're saying, Landon. It's not that he's not talented. He is incredible, talented running back. But the game script is just not going to be there. I get that Burrows is probably coming. He's a great quarterback. He's a rookie. He's going to have turnovers. They're going to be playing from behind constantly as he gets adjusted to the NFL season. I get that he's incredibly talented, but do I think that's going to make the Bengals from what they were this season to a constantly winning, grind out the clock, featured back offense? I really don't see it happening. So it's not a question of talent, and if he was to leave the Bengals, he's very young and his future could be bright. So when we're talking specifically dynasty, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to grab him at a discount, but at his current ADP, I think that is an absolute way to destroy your fantasy season right at the draft. Mark, am I crazy? What do you think?
So lots to take in, but I wouldn't say I'm quite as down on Joe Mixon as you fellas are. Looking at this season coming up, we know they're going to be revamping with a new quarterback, and that is obviously tentative, but we're fairly sure they will get Joe Burrow. And what that brings to the table is a lot more mobility at the quarterback position, first and foremost. Mobility at the quarterback position allows a lot of openings for Joe Mixon. Andy Dalton wasn't able to leave the pocket. He wouldn't be able to stun defenses or to be able to run the run pass option type plays and to keep plays alive longer than a couple seconds in the pocket. So I think it's going to be a big game changer with a new quarterback, a lot more youth, and then obviously AJ Green. If he comes into the fold healthy all season, then defenses aren't just going to be planning to stop the run against this Bengals offense. You got to think, last year these defenses weren't preparing to stop the Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate receiver core. They were gearing up to stop Joe Mixon. And then when we did see, like Landon mentioned, a huge boost at the end of the season where Mixon was averaging nearly 20 points a game for the last 5 weeks of the season, he was getting the ball a ton early on. I think with that success at the end of their season, they know that formula is going to work and that they're going to need to do that early in the season. And when you look at his dud games last year, it's probably because they were giving him the ball in desperation mode. They weren't starting off games giving him the ball. So I think 201 in the right context isn't too crazy for a guy like Mixon. I think he's incredibly talented. He's very young if you got your hands on him in a dynasty format. And like I said, there's more going for that offense now than last year. It's exponential with the addition of Burrow and Green. So my one other concern, however, to finish off my point here, is that while you can hear about the upgrades at offensive line on this team, there's still lots of holes to fill. It's not like one or two pieces could have brought that offensive line to above average. They're still below average. That's what concerns me. I'm looking for the Bengals to draft a talented lineman in the draft here, and that's obviously going to be contingent on the Burrow addition as well. So that's my take. I don't think it's crazy, but I do think I will need to see them take a young, good offensive lineman in the draft in order to take Joe Mixon. Landon, did you want to bring it home for us? Or Mac, what do you have to say there?
Sorry. I know that we're a ways away from the NFL season or drafting, but as of right now, Joe Mixon sits at the 201. Now he's going ahead of guys like Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, and Josh Jacobs, as well as Derrick Henry. Like, do you see yourself taking Joe Mixon over Leonard Fournette or Nick Chubb? Like, we just talked about Nick Chubb in our last video. Landon, like, what's your temperature on Joe Mixon? Are you that high on him, or would you still take Chubb and Fournette over Mixon?
Those are really tough. I think I would take Joe Mixon over Nick Chubb in fantasy, but I think I would have them more as a mid to late second round picks. I think Chubb's gonna fall to the 208 slot, and Joe Mixon will be around the 206 spot right before that. I do like the workhorse capability first, and I'll prioritize that. Like Fournette might go ahead, Josh Jacobs will go ahead of these guys. And you're right. It's essentially having a better offense. More touchdown opportunities will at least put these guys ahead of a timeshare that I'm predicting with Nick Chubb. Although I do like the skill set that Chubb provides. But what I will say is it's gonna be a very polarizing spot for Joe Mixon. I think it's gonna be something that either you're gonna be all in, and you're gonna be all in on the opportunity and the outlook and the new offense that this offense provides, which does provide question marks. So if you're looking for a safer option, maybe Chubb is the guy, maybe Fournette is the guy. And but I think the upside potential with a double threat like Joe Mixon is, even if they're behind in games, he could be out of the backfield for dump offs. That'll be the recipe for success. So if you're still here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate everything from the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Comment below. Are you one of these guys that are in? Are you out? And we'll see you next time. I think next week's going to be the wide receivers. So if you want any wide receivers for us to talk about, send us a message. Comment below too. And we'll see you next time.